mid to late summer is a perfect time to take rosemary cuttings and propagate them into new plants. That's because the fresh growth from this year is old enough, it's semi-ripe, it's resilient, but still will root quickly. And we also have just enough time for the plants to fill out, establish their roots before winter sets in. And then next year, you would take the young plants and then plant them outside. It's also very easy. So I'm going to take you through step by step what you need to do to take an existing rosemary plant and use it to create tons of plants for free. Propagation starts with a piece of a plant and encouraging it to grow its own roots and to become its own unique individual plants. And propagating by stem cuttings is the most common. It is the easiest. And if you take some now of your rosemary, you can expect to have brand new baby plants in as little as 2 months. What you need to start this project is an existing rosemary plant. It could be just a single one from your garden. This is one that I planted out here in this birdie's bed earlier this year. It could be one in a friend's garden. It could be a cheeky cutting you got somewhere else, or potentially it could also be a cutting off of a rosemary plant that you get from a potted plant in the herb section of your supermarket. If it's fresh, if it's long enough, it will probably grow. When propagating rosemary from cuttings, you can begin with a youngish piece of stem from an existing plant. Avoid any woody stems because they don't propagate as easily. Now you can either take 4 to 6 inch cuttings directly from the tips of individual stems or cut a larger branch down. I'm going to start with a single large branch, which I'll be able to get 2 good cuttings from. The first step is taking it inside and working your way up from the bottom of the stem. With a clean, sharp knife, cut just below the lowermost leaves. Then using your fingers, gently pull off a good 2 to 3 inches of leaves. Make another cut about 1 inch above the leaves and you have your first rosemary cutting. Although optional, you can dip the end into rooting hormone powder to help stimulate root formation. Then push the cutting along the edge of a pot filled with a free draining planting medium. Push it down almost all the way to the leaves. You can plant many cuttings around the edge of the same pot, but plant them out at least a couple of inches apart. There are lots of choices of potting mix, but I tend to use a mixture of 1 part perlite or vermiculite to 1 to 2 parts multi-purpose potting mix or compost. Others use sand, pure perlite, or other materials. Once the cuttings are planted, water them well and allow the water to fully drain away from the pot. Then place it in indirect light in a warm but not hot place. Place a plastic bag over the top. It works like a mini greenhouse and helps to ensure that the cuttings take. 6 weeks later, and my little cuttings have definitely formed roots. I knew this because on turning the pot over, I could see them sticking out at the bottom. That's a sign that it's time to separate them into individual plants and give each their own pot to grow. The best way to do this is with your fingers, since you can gently tease apart the roots without damaging them too much. If you're wearing gloves, you can't feel them as well and you can damage the young plants. So just gently pull them apart, and before long, you're going to have 2 or more individual plants to replant into their own pots. These babies are still very fragile, which is why we're potting them on and not planting them outside just yet. They need to develop better root systems and leaves, and if we allow them to do that in a small pot first, that will ensure that they'll be stronger, healthier plants when we eventually do plant them outside. All I'm doing is putting them into individual 3-inch pots and planting them into a mix that's 1 part perlite to 2 parts compost. It's best to plant them into fresh potting mix, but you can use what's left in the original pot too. Then after a good watering in, I'll carry on growing them under cover in the greenhouse. Once the roots are coming out of the drainage holes of the new pot, I could then harden it off and plant it outside. You could also repot them into larger pots and keep growing them under cover. You do that if you wanted larger, healthier plants, or if you just don't have space in the garden for them yet. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, you found it useful, and once you have this little gardening technique down, you can start propagating a lot more different types of plants. Not just rosemary, but also lavender, Cape gooseberry, mint, so many plants. So that way you save a lot of money because you start off with 1 plant and then you multiply it into many. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Lovely Greens for more gardening tips and projects. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.